The face in the bus window didn't belong to any of the children seated inside. It watched, with hollow eyes, as the real children sang their field trip songs. The radio crackled to life in the empty school office at 3:17 a.m. A child's voice, distorted by static. "We're still here, Ms. Winters. We're waiting for you to find us. You won't believe what happened next. Watch until the end. I've been a substitute teacher in Millbrook for just 3 months, but I can't ignore the whispers anymore." It started when Principal Gardner handed me a class roster with 18 names crossed out in faded red ink. "Those are from the Foggy Pines incident," he said, avoiding my eyes. "We keep them on all class records. Tradition, I guess." "What incident?" I asked. He shuffled papers on his desk, suddenly interested in a permission slip. 1986, field trip to the nature reserve. Bus never came back. "You'll hear all sorts of stories, but we don't discuss it with outsiders." I nodded and left, but his words followed me. Outsiders. As if this town belonged to some private club of shared secrets. That night, I drove past the school and noticed light in the records room. Through the window, I saw Gardner feeding papers into a shredder. Our eyes met briefly before he yanked the blinds shut. I should have let it go. But then I found the photograph while organizing classroom supplies. 18 children standing in front of a yellow school bus, their faces unnaturally solemn. The date stamp read, May 7th, 1986, departure for Foggy Pines. What struck me wasn't their matching blue and burgundy clothes, but their eyes, empty, vacant, like they were already gone. The next day, Jeremy, my brightest student, handed in an essay about local legends. "The children of Foggy Pines didn't disappear," he'd written. "They came back different." When I asked what he meant, he shrugged. "That's what my mom says. She was supposed to go on that trip, but she was sick that day." I spent that evening in the town library, scrolling through microfiche archives. The headlines were smaller than I expected. "Search continues for missing school bus." "Foggy Pines expedition, no new leads." Then, 3 weeks later, memorial service held for Foggy Pines. 18. No bodies, no bus, no explanation. The librarian caught me as I was leaving. "Finding anything interesting?" she asked, her fingers nervously adjusting her glasses. "Just researching local history," I replied. "Some history isn't meant to be dug up," she said. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I catalogued the personal effects. Items found in the woods. A backpack, 18 pairs of shoes, perfectly arranged in a circle. All empty. Rain pelted my windshield as I drove home. The wipers smeared the water rather than clearing it. Through the streaks, I swore I saw children standing along the roadside, watching my car pass. When I blinked, they were gone. At home, I spread my notes across the kitchen table. The weather report from May 7th, 1986. Clear skies, no fog predicted. The bus driver's spotless record, the teacher's final radio call. The children are seeing their reflections in the trees. It's not right. The lights flickered. My reflection in the window seemed to move a split second after I did. I found Miss Winter's address in the school directory. The original teacher who'd led the field trip. She still lived in Millbrook, though she'd retired decades ago. Her house sat at the edge of town, paint peeling, mailbox overflowing. She opened the door before I knocked. "I've been waiting for you," she said, her eyes cloudy with cataracts. "You're asking questions about them. I just want to understand what happened." She led me to a cluttered living room. Newspaper clippings covered one wall, children's drawings on another. "They knew," she whispered, pointing to the drawings. "They tried to tell us." The drawings showed the same scene, stick figures of children standing in a forest, facing identical figures. Mirror images. The week before the trip, every child reported seeing themselves in reflections where there shouldn't be any. Windows, puddles, the metal of jungle gyms. She picked up a yellowed piece of paper. Emily wrote this the day before we left. The childish handwriting sent chills down my spine. My other me is in the forest. She says she's tired of being in the reflection. She wants to come out. And you? Have you ever seen your reflection act strangely? Leave in the comments. Miss Winters. Hands trembled as she poured tea. I wasn't supposed to survive, you know, but I got off the bus to retrieve Marcus's inhaler from my car. When I turned around, the teacup slipped from her fingers, shattering on the floor. The fog came so suddenly, I couldn't see 3 feet ahead. I heard the bus doors close, the engine start. I ran toward the sound, but what? Her eyes met mine, clear for a moment. I saw them. The bus pulled away, and through the back window, I saw myself sitting with the children. My reflection waved goodbye. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. I helped her clean up the broken cup, my mind racing with questions. Did anyone believe you? She gave a bitter laugh. They said I was in shock. That grief can make people see things. The search went on for weeks. Helicopters, dogs, volunteers combing every inch of those woods. They never found the bus, never found the children and the shoes, the ones arranged in a circle. Her expression changed, a flash of fear crossing her face. You've been talking to Martha at the library. Yes, they found those 3 days after, perfectly placed, as if the children had been standing there and simply vanished, left their shoes behind. She moved to a cabinet and pulled out a small wooden box. Inside was a child's compass, its needle spinning continuously despite her steady hand. This belonged to Peter Collins. They found it in the center of the shoe circle. It hasn't stopped spinning since that day, like it's searching for something between worlds. I stared at the compass, mesmerized by its endless rotation. Ms. Winters, do you think they're dead? She closed the box with a snap. I think they're somewhere else. Somewhere the search parties couldn't reach. The reflections took them. Reflections can't... You weren't there. She cut me off. You didn't see how the fog moved, like it had purpose, intelligence. The children had been talking about their reflections for days, how they'd move on their own, how they'd whisper things. No one listened. We thought it was just an imaginary game. She pulled another drawing from a folder, a crude illustration of the forest with stick figures surrounded by white scribbles. Words in a child's handwriting filled the margins. The fog hides them, and they want to switch places. This was drawn 2 days before the trip. Sarah was always drawing, always watching. She tried to warn us. What happened to the parents? How did they cope? Ms. Winters' gaze drifted to the window. Outside, twilight was setting in, the first wisps of evening mist rising from the ground. 4 families moved away immediately, couldn't bear to stay. 3 of the fathers formed a search group that still goes out on the anniversary each year. The others, they adapted. Grief changes people. She turned back to me, studying my face with surprising intensity. Why are you so interested in this? It was 40 years ago. I hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. I found my name in the school records as a substitute request for that day, but I wasn't here in 1986. I wasn't even born yet. Mrs. Winters went very still. Show me. I pulled out my phone, displaying the photograph I'd taken of the old staff assignment sheet. There it was, my full name, listed as emergency substitute for May 7th, 1986. That's impossible, she whispered. I know. That's why I started looking into this. Someone with my exact name was supposed to be on that bus with those children. She stood abruptly, moving to the windows to draw the curtains. You need to leave now. But I still have questions. Listen to me, she hissed, suddenly gripping my arm. They've been waiting 40 years. The cycle is coming around again. They're reaching through, looking for the pieces that got away, me and apparently you. What cycle? What are you talking about? May 7th, 2026, exactly 40 years. The boundary will be thinnest then. They'll try again. Try what? To come through, all the way through. Her eyes darted to the darkening windows. They're watching us now, I can feel them. Go home, cover your mirrors, don't look at your reflection. And whatever you do, stay away from Foggy Pines. I left Miss Winter's house more confused than when I'd arrived. As I pulled away, I glanced in my rearview mirror and saw her watching from the window, her silhouette unnaturally still. Then she raised her hand and waved, but the motion seemed wrong somehow, like it was reversed. That night, I dreamed of fog and mirrors and 18 pairs of empty shoes, and behind it all, a yellow school bus waiting silently in the forest, its doors open, inviting me inside. My phone rang at 3:17 a.m. The display showed the school's number, but when I answered, there was only the sound of children singing a field trip song, their voices distorted as if underwater. I couldn't sleep after my visit with Ms. Winters. Her final words haunted me. They're still out there, not the children, the others. The reflections. I called the police station the next morning, asking to see the original reports from 1986. Officer Daniels, young enough to have only heard of the incident as a town legend, directed me to records. Most of that stuff was damaged in the basement flood of '98, he said, but I'll see what I can find. 2 hours later, he led me to a cardboard box stained with water damage. This is all we have left, he said, then hesitated. Listen, my uncle was the chief back then. He said they found something they couldn't explain. Footprints leading away from where they think the bus stopped. 18 sets of small footprints going into the forest, and 18 identical sets walking out, like they crossed paths with themselves. The box contained photographs of the search effort, men with dogs, helicopters. The empty forest road with fog so thick it seemed solid, and one photo that made my blood freeze. The edge of a lake, with what looked like the roof of a yellow bus, barely visible beneath the surface. Someone had written on the back, Lake Merrill, not for official record. Why wasn't this in the newspapers? I asked. They never reported finding the bus. Officer Daniels shifted uncomfortably. They didn't. According to official reports, they never found anything. I drove to Lake Merrill that afternoon. It was smaller than I expected, nestled among dense pines. The surface reflected the trees like a perfect mirror. No sign that anything had ever disturbed its depths. An old man was fishing from a weathered dock. When I approached, he reeled in his line. "You're the new teacher," he said, "not a question. How did you—" "Small town. Word gets around when someone starts asking about Foggy Pines." He secured his fishing rod and gestured for me to sit. "I was on the dive team," he said. "We found the bus right there, about 30 feet down." His gnarled finger pointed to the center of the lake. "Were there bodies?" He shook his head. "Empty, seats dry as bone. Engine cold, like it had been parked there for years, not hours. But the strangest thing," he leaned closer, his voice dropping, "the inside of every window had fingerprints, small ones, like the children were trying to get out, but the doors were open." A cool breeze rippled across the lake, distorting our reflections. The town council decided not to make it public, said it would just bring ghost hunters and tragedy tourists. So they had the bus pulled out at night and destroyed. The official story became that they never found anything. "Why are you telling me this?" His weathered face crinkled with something between a smile and a grimace. "Because I saw something that night when they winched the bus up. Shapes moving in the trees, watching us. Children's shapes. But when I turned to look directly, there was nothing there. I returned to Mrs. Winter's house with more questions, but found police cars in her driveway. Officer Daniels intercepted me. "She's gone," he said. "Neighbor found her this morning, natural causes, looks like." Behind him, I glimpsed emergency personnel wheeling out a covered body. "Did she say anything else to you about what happened?" The question seemed odd. "No. Just what I already told you. Why? We found something strange. Her bathroom mirror was covered with writing in red lipstick. They're coming through the reflections, and every other reflective surface in the house was either covered or broken. And you? Have you ever seen your reflection act strangely? Leave in the comments. Back in my apartment, I spread everything I'd learned across my desk. The pieces weren't fitting together. Why would reflections want to replace the real children? What happened in those woods? I remembered Jeremy's essay and called his mother. She was reluctant to talk at first. It was 40 years ago, she said. Why dig it up now? Because no one ever found out what really happened. A long pause. The children were different. The week before, my friend Lisa, she was on that bus. She started talking about seeing herself in windows. All of them did. Playing with them on the playground when no one was there. Waving from puddles. The adults thought it was a game they'd invented. And you were supposed to go. Her voice trembled. I saw my reflection too, in my bedroom window, but it didn't smile when I did. I got so scared I made myself sick to avoid the trip. That night, I dreamed of fog and a yellow bus. I was walking alongside it as it crept down a forest road. Through the windows, I could see the 18 children, their faces pressed against the glass, mouths open in silent screams. And at the wheel, my own face turned to watch me pass. I woke, gasping for air. My bathroom light was on, though I didn't remember leaving it that way. Cautiously, I approached the door and pushed it open. The mirror was fogged over. Written in the condensation was a childish scrawl, "You're getting closer." I backed away, heart pounding, and bumped into my desk. The class photograph fell to the floor, glass cracking across the faces of the 18 children. But now, in the back row, partially hidden behind a child's shoulder, I could see another face I hadn't noticed before. My face. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Instead, I drove to the school before dawn, determined to search Gardner's office for anything he might have been shredding. The parking lot was empty except for a single car I didn't recognize. The school building loomed dark against the pre-dawn sky, but one window glowed with light, the records room. I parked away from the building and approached cautiously. Through the window, I could see Jeremy, my student, rifling through file cabinets. What was a 12-year-old doing at school at 5 a.m.? I watched as he pulled out folders, photographing contents with his phone before carefully replacing them. His movements were methodical, practiced, not like a child at all. He suddenly stopped and looked up, directly at my hiding spot. I ducked down, heart racing. When I dared look again, he was gone from the window. I waited several minutes before entering the school, using my substitute teacher key card. The hallways were dark, silent. I made my way to the records room, finding it unlocked but empty. The file cabinets Jeremy had been searching stood open, but when I checked the folders inside, they appeared untouched. A noise from down the hall startled me, a classroom door closing softly. I followed the sound, moving quietly through the darkened corridor until I reached room 108, my classroom. Through the small window in the door, I could see Jeremy standing at my desk, placing something in the drawer. His back was to me. I pushed the door open. "Jeremy, what are you doing here?" He didn't turn around. "She told you to stay away, didn't she? Miss Winters, before she died, she warned you." His voice sounded wrong, deeper, older. "How do you know about that?" I asked, inching into the room. "Because she warned all the substitutes, every time, for 40 years. He slowly turned to face me, and I stifled a gasp. His eyes, there was something wrong with his eyes. The pupils seemed inverted, pale against dark irises. "You're not Jeremy." A smile spread across his face, too wide, revealing too many teeth. "I was, a long time ago. But Jeremy got sick that day, just like his mother. So I took his place. I've been waiting a long time for the cycle to complete. For the door to open again." "What door?" What are you talking about? He moved toward me with unnatural grace. The door between worlds, the reflection world and yours. We've been trapped there for centuries, watching from the other side of every mirror, every window, every puddle. But we found a way through. Every 40 years, when the boundary thins, I backed toward the classroom door. What happened to the real Jeremy? The thing wearing Jeremy's face tilted its head. He's where I used to be, on the other side, with the others. With the 18 from 1986, and the 18 from 1946, and 1906. You've been doing this for that long. Longer. But we need more to fully open the door. 18 wasn't enough. We need 36. That's why I'm here. To prepare for the next crossing. My back hit the door. Jeremy, or whatever was pretending to be Jeremy, stopped advancing. You should look at what I left in your desk. A gift from 1986. Then he smiled again, stepped backward, and simply vanished. One moment he was there, and the next, gone, like a reflection when you turn off the light. Shaking, I approached my desk and pulled open the drawer. Inside was a small, leather-bound journal, the cover stained and weathered. A name was embossed on the front, mine. I opened it to the first page and read, Field Trip Log, Foggy Pines Elementary School, May 7th, 1986, Substitute Teacher Assignment, my full name. The handwriting was mine, the signature at the bottom, mine. But I hadn't been born yet in 1986. I flipped through the pages, most of them blank, until I reached an entry dated May 6th, 1986. The children are acting strangely. They keep talking about seeing themselves in reflections. I've noticed it too. My own reflection moving a second too late. The fog that wasn't predicted. Something is wrong with this place. If anything happens to me tomorrow, know that it's connected to the lake, to the reflections, to the 40-year cycle that's been happening since 1866. The final page had a hastily scrawled note. They're coming through the fog. I can see them approaching the bus. They look exactly like us. My reflection is walking toward me, smiling. The children are screaming. The doors won't close. If you're reading this, you're next. May 7th, 2026. 40 years. The cycle continues. They need 36 to open the door permanently. I dropped the journal, my hands trembling uncontrollably. How could I have written something 40 years before I was born? Unless I wasn't who I thought I was. The lights in my classroom flickered 3 times, then went out completely. In the darkness, I heard a soft tapping on the windows. 18 small handprints appeared in the condensation, pressing from the outside in. I left the school in a daze, the journal clutched in my trembling hands. The sun was rising now, casting long shadows across the empty parking lot. I needed answers, and I knew there was only one place to find them. The Town Historical Society occupied a small Victorian house near the center of Millbrook. It wasn't open yet, but I'd met the curator, Dr. Eleanor Hayes, at a school function. I had her card somewhere. I called from my car. This better be important, she answered groggily. It's not even 7 a.m. It's about Foggy Pines, the incidents, all of them, 1986, 1946, 1906. Silence on the line. Then, where are you? Outside the Historical Society. Stay there, I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't talk to anyone else. While waiting, I examined the journal more carefully. The handwriting matched mine perfectly. Every loop, every crossed T, every quirk. But the pages felt wrong somehow, as if they were older than they should be. The ink had a faded quality that couldn't be faked. Dr. Hayes arrived in a rush, her grey hair uncombed, wearing mismatched clothes. She unlocked the door without greeting me and led me straight to a back room I hadn't seen during the public tour. "Show me," she demanded, holding out her hand for the journal. She examined it carefully, running her fingers over the pages, checking the binding. "Where did you get this?" I told her about Jeremy, about his strange behavior and impossible eyes, about finding my name on the substitute list from 1986. She listened without interrupting, her expression growing more grave with each detail. Finally, she moved to a locked cabinet and withdrew a large leather-bound volume. This is the town census record, every resident, birth to death, since Millbrook was founded in 1821. She flipped through pages until she reached the 1980s. What's your date of birth? April 15th, 1990. Her finger traced down the page until she found what she was looking for. Here, April 15th, 1990. But not you. She turned the book so I could see. There it was, my exact name, listed as born to parents I'd never heard of. That's impossible. Those aren't my parents. No, she agreed. According to this, the child with your name died 3 days after birth, April 18th, 1990. I felt the room spin. That can't be right. I exist. I'm here. Yes, she said carefully. You're here, but are you who you think you are? She pulled another book from the shelf, this one smaller, bound in faded green cloth. This is my personal research journal. I've been studying the Foggy Pines incidents for decades. She opened to a page marked with a faded ribbon. Every 40 years, like clockwork. 1866, 1906, 1946, 1986, 18 children disappear. But something else happens too, something the official records don't show. She pointed to a list of names. In the weeks and months after each incident, new people arrive in town. People with no verifiable history. People who fill empty spaces. My mouth went dry. What are you saying? I'm saying that after each incident, exactly 18 new residents appear in Millbrook. They have papers, memories, personalities that seem real, but they have no birth records outside of Millbrook, no family that can be traced. They simply exist. She turned more pages, revealing newspaper clippings, birth announcements, obituaries. After the 1986 incident, 18 new residents moved to Millbrook within 6 months, all with the same birth date, April 15th, 1990. I stared at the list of names. Mine was there 5th from the top. That's not possible. I grew up in Oregon. I moved here 3 months ago for this teaching position. Did you, or do you just remember it that way? And have you ever felt like your memories don't quite match reality? Leave in the comments. Dr. Hayes. Eyes were kind but firm. The reflections don't just take, they replace. They become new people, with new lives, new memories. They believe they're human, they live, age, and die like humans, but they're not from here. I shook my head, trying to clear it. If what you're saying is true, then I'm... What? One of them. A reflection that came through in 1986? I believe so. But you're not like the others. You came back to Millbrook, you're asking questions, and now, as the 40-year cycle approaches again, May 7th, 2026, I whispered, yes, when the boundary between worlds will be at its thinnest, when they'll try again. Try what? She closed her books and looked at me intently. To open the door permanently. The first crossings were just tests, small breaches, but with each cycle, more come through. And more are needed for the final opening. The journal mentioned 36. She nodded. The number has mystical significance, twice 18. The reflections believe they need 36 souls to permanently tear the veil between worlds. But why? What do they want? Dr. Hayes moved to the window, gazing out at the brightening day. Freedom. Their world is a reflection of ours, but limited. Bounded by mirrors and surfaces. They want what we have. Full physicality. The ability to exist without a source. She turned back to me. But that's not the most troubling part. The most troubling part is what happens to those who are replaced. Where do they go? A chill ran through me. The other side. The reflection world. Yes, trapped there just as the reflections were trapped here. An exchange of prisoners. I thought of the 18 children from 1986, faces pressed against glass, looking out from a world of mirrors. And you think I'm one of them? A reflection that came through? I don't know. You could be, or you could be something else entirely. Something new. Dr. Hayes retrieved a small wooden box from her desk drawer. There's one way to be certain. She opened the box to reveal an old-fashioned silver hand mirror, its surface darkened with age. "Look," she said simply, holding it up. I hesitated, then forced myself to look at my reflection. For a moment, everything seemed normal. Then my reflection smiled, while I remained frozen in fear. "Hello," it mouthed silently. "Remember me?" I stumbled backward, knocking over a chair. What was that? What just happened? Dr. Hayes carefully placed the mirror back in its box. Your reflection responded independently. That shouldn't be possible if you're truly from the reflection world. Those who've crossed over don't cast independent reflections. They become the primary, and their reflections are just echoes, like normal humans. Then what am I? I think you might be one of the originals, one of the children who disappeared in 1986. Somehow, you've returned, and your reflection recognizes you. I sat down heavily, my legs suddenly unable to support me. That's impossible. I'm 36 years old. Those children would be in their 50s now. Time moves differently on the other side. That's one of the few things we know for certain. She sat across from me, her expression somber. If I'm right, then you're in terrible danger. The cycle is approaching completion. May 7th is less than a week away, and you're a threat to their plans. How could I possibly be a threat? Because you're proof that the exchange isn't permanent, that those taken can return. And if you've returned, others might too. I finished. Dr. Hayes nodded. We need to know for certain. We need to go to where it all began. Foggy Pines. Yes, but not alone and not unprepared. The reflections will be watching, especially now that you've started asking questions. She began gathering books and papers, stuffing them into a weathered leather satchel. Go home, pack overnight gear, meet me back here at dusk. And whatever you do, avoid all reflective surfaces. Cover the mirrors in your house. Stay away from windows after dark. Don't look at your phone screen too long. You really believe all this? It sounds insane. She offered a grim smile. I've been documenting these events for 30 years. My aunt was one of the searchers in 1986. She saw things in those woods that broke her mind. She spent her last years in Lakewood Psychiatric, drawing the same image over and over. She pulled a folder from a shelf and extracted a yellowed piece of paper. A childish drawing of stick figures, half of them upside down, all connected at the hands. Around them, a circle of what looked like trees, or perhaps doorways. This isn't just local folklore. It's happening, and it will happen again in 6 days, unless we can stop it. I took the drawing, studying the strange formations. How? How do we stop something like this? I don't know yet, but you're the key. You came back for a reason. I left the Historical Society with more questions than answers, my world tilted on its axis. If what Dr. Hayes believed was true, then nothing about my life was real. My memories, my childhood, my identity, all fabricated. At home, I covered every mirror as instructed, even taping over the reflective chrome on kitchen appliances. I packed a bag with essentials, flashlight, first aid kit, water, energy bars, then sat at my kitchen table, staring at the journal. If I was one of the original children from 1986, which one was I? And how had I escaped the reflection world? What about the other children? Were they still trapped there, waiting? I opened my laptop to search for information about the 18 missing children, then remembered Dr. Hayes' warning about reflective surfaces. The screen was too much like a mirror. I closed it quickly. Instead, I turned to the journal again, flipping through pages until I reached the back cover. There, tucked into a small pocket I hadn't noticed before, was a folded photograph. With trembling fingers, I carefully unfolded it. A class photo, similar to the one I'd found earlier, but different. 18 children standing in front of the yellow bus. But their faces, they were normal, smiling, alive, present. Not the vacant-eyed children from the other photo. And there, in the front row, a small boy with a cowlick and missing front tooth. A boy with my eyes. A memory surfaced, fragmented, distorted, fog surrounding the bus. Strange figures approaching through the trees, reflections that moved on their own. The smell of pine needles and lake water, screaming, then darkness. I dropped the photo as a sharp pain lanced through my head. Flashes of another life, another world, where everything was backward, where water flowed uphill and light cast shadows of darkness, where I'd been trapped, watching through mirrors and windows as my reflection lived my life, until somehow I'd found my way back. But if I had returned, where was my reflection now? The sun was setting. Time to meet Dr. Hayes. I grabbed my bag and the journal, heading for the door. As I turned the knob, my phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number. Don't trust her. She's not who she seems. Meet me at Lake Merrill instead. Another buzz. This is Jeremy, the real Jeremy. I came back too. The school was unnaturally quiet the morning of May 7th. My footsteps echoed in the empty hallway as I made my way to my classroom. A note on the door explained, "School closed for Foggy Pines Memorial Day." No one had told me. Outside, the first tendrils of fog were already curling around the building. I stared at the text message from the real Jeremy for a long moment before making my decision. I texted back, "How do I know you're telling the truth?" The response came immediately. "Ms. Winters gave you a compass that spins constantly. It belonged to Peter Collins. It's trying to find its way home." I hadn't told anyone about the compass, not even Dr. Hayes. Another text, "Lake Merrill, Northern Shore, the old boathouse. Come alone. Hurry." I changed direction, heading for Lake Merrill instead of the Historical Society. The roads were eerily empty, the few people visible hurrying indoors as the fog continued to thicken. By the time I reached the lake, visibility had dropped to less than 20 feet. The boathouse stood like a shadow at the edge of the water, its weathered boards gray against the white mist. I approached cautiously, one hand on my phone, ready to call for help. "Hello, Jeremy." Movement inside. A small figure emerged from the doorway, a boy, about 12, with a familiar face, but not Jeremy as I knew him. This boy was thinner, paler, with a scar above his right eyebrow that the Jeremy from my class didn't have. "Oh, you came," he said, his voice higher than the Jeremy I knew. "I wasn't sure you would." "Who are you?" "I told you, I'm Jeremy, the real Jeremy. Not the thing that's been pretending to be me for the past 40 years. He stepped closer, and I could see his eyes were normal, dark pupils against white sclera. Not the inverted eyes of the other Jeremy. "How did you get here? How did you escape? The same way you did. Through the thin places, where the boundary breaks down." He gestured for me to follow him into the boathouse. Inside, the walls were covered with newspaper clippings, photographs and hand-drawn maps, similar to Dr. Hayes' research, but more frantic, more desperate. "I've been hiding here for 3 days, he said. "Ever since I made it back. They're looking for me, for us." "Who's looking?" "The reflections, the others. They know we've crossed back and they can't allow that, not so close to the completion." He pointed to a calendar on the wall. May 7th was circled in red. Today's the day, the 40th anniversary, when the boundary will be thinnest. What happens today? Jeremy's young face looked suddenly ancient with worry. "They'll try to bring the rest through. All of them, not just 18 this time, hundreds, thousands. Every reflection that's been trapped on the other side, watching and waiting. And the 36, the journal mentioned they need 36 to open the door permanently. He nodded grimly. 18 from 1986, 18 more today. A perfect balance to tear the veil completely. But why bring us back? I gestured to Jeremy and myself. If we escaped, doesn't that ruin their count? A sad smile crossed his face. We didn't escape. We were sent back. As bait. Bait. For what? To lure the others. The ones who replaced us 40 years ago. The reflections who've been living as humans all this time. Growing older, forgetting what they really are. He moved to a map of Millbrook, where 18 houses were marked with red X's. They need all 36 gathered at the same place, at the same time. The original 18 from 1986 and the 18 reflections who took their places. That's why they sent us back. To draw the others to Foggy Pines, I thought of Dr. Hayes, waiting for me at the Historical Society. There's someone who might be able to help us, a researcher who's been studying the incidents. Jeremy's face darkened. Eleanor Hayes? You can't trust her? Why not? Because she's one of them. One of the reflections that came through in 1946. My blood ran cold. How do you know that? Because I saw her. On the other side, she was different there, older, twisted. She helps them, guides them. She's been orchestrating this for decades. I recalled her extensive research, her convenient appearance in town, her eagerness to take me to Foggy Pines. If what you're saying is true, then she was trying to lead me into a trap. Yes, they need you there. You're one of the original 18. I am too. Jeremy turned to a photograph pinned to the wall, the same class photo I'd found, with the normal, smiling children. That's me, he said, pointing to a boy in the back row. No, and that's you. He indicated the boy with the cowlick and missing tooth, the one I'd recognized from my own copy of the photo. Tommy, he said. Tommy Collins, that's who you really are. The name struck a chord deep within me. Tommy Collins, brother of Peter Collins, whose compass never stopped spinning. More fragments of memory surfaced. A classroom, children laughing, a yellow bus waiting in the school parking lot. The excitement of a field trip. Peter showing me his new compass, the fog rolling in from nowhere. The reflection children emerging from the trees, walking toward us. The screams. I remember, I whispered. Not everything, but pieces. Jeremy, no. I suddenly remembered his real name, Michael. Michael Dawson. We'd been friends, sat together on the bus. How long were we there, Michael? On the other side. His eyes grew distant. Time moves differently there. For them, 40 years. For us, it felt like days. Maybe weeks. Until they sent us back. But why don't I look like a child? Why do I have an adult's body, adult memories? They built you a new shell, made you think you were someone else. But inside, you're still Tommy Collins, just like I'm still Michael Dawson, even in this older body. He gestured to himself. This isn't my real appearance. It's just how I manifested when I crossed back. I think we take the form that matches our strongest self-image. You saw yourself as an adult, so that's what you became. Outside, the fog had grown so thick it was like white walls surrounding the boathouse. Through the small window, I could see nothing but swirling mist. They're coming, Michael said quietly. They know we're here. Who's coming? All of them. The reflections. The 18 from 1986 who've been living as humans. And the new 18 they've chosen for today. He moved to a chest in the corner and withdrew what looked like an old photo album. Before they find us, you need to see this to understand what we're dealing with. He opened the album to reveal newspaper clippings spanning decades, headlines about strange disappearances, unexplained phenomena, people acting out of character. They've been here all along, living among us, growing older, having families. But they're not human, and today they'll reveal their true nature. He flipped to a page with 18 driver's license photos paper-clipped together. These are the reflections from 1986, the ones who replaced us. I've been tracking them. I scanned the faces, looking for anyone familiar, then stopped cold. This one. I know him. Michael nodded grimly. Principal Gardner. He was our principal back then too, but not the real Gardner. His reflection. And Dr. Hayes? You said she came through in 1946? Yes. They take positions of authority when they can. Places where they can influence events, prepare for the next cycle. And you, have you ever felt like someone you know isn't quite who they appear to be? Leave in the comments. A sound from outside, car doors closing, voices approaching. Michael quickly closed the album and shoved it into my hands. Hide this. It's evidence. Proof of what's been happening. What do we do now? I asked, tucking the album into my backpack. We need to stop them from completing the circle. If all 36 gather at Foggy Pines today, the door opens permanently. Their world merges with ours. And what happens then? His young face was grim. Chaos. Their world is a distorted version of ours. Physics works differently there. If the worlds merge, the door to the boathouse rattled, someone trying the handle. Michael, a woman's voice called. Dr. Hayes, I know you're in there. We need to talk. Michael gripped my arm. There's another way out, he whispered. Through the back, it leads to a path along the shore. Follow it to the old ranger station. Wait for me there. What about you? I'll distract them, give you time to escape. I can't leave you. You have to. You have the album, the evidence. If anything happens to me, you need to make sure others know the truth. The door rattled more violently now, wood splintering as someone threw their weight against it. Go, Michael hissed, pushing me toward the back exit. I slipped through the narrow door just as the front entrance burst open. Through a crack in the weathered boards, I saw Dr. Hayes enter, followed by Principal Gardner and several others I recognized from town, the librarian, Officer Daniels, the old fisherman from the dock. All of them had the same strange, inverted eyes. Where is he, Michael? Dr. Hayes asked, her voice eerily calm. Where is Tommy? Gone, Michael replied defiantly. You're too late. I didn't wait to hear more. I ran along the narrow path that hugged the lakeshore, the fog swallowing me within seconds. Behind me, I thought I heard Michael shout, but the sound was muffled by the thick mist. The ranger station appeared like a ghost through the white haze, a small cabin set back from the shore. It looked abandoned, windows boarded up, roof sagging. I tried the door, locked. Circling around, I found a window with loose boards. I pried one free and squeezed through into the musty interior. The cabin was a single room, dusty furniture, dead leaves on the floor, animal droppings in the corners. But someone had been here recently. On the table was a map of Foggy Pines, with a location circled in red marker, the clearing. Next to it lay a child's backpack, weathered and faded, but familiar. The name Tommy Collins was written in the same childish hand I'd used 40 years ago. Inside the backpack, I found clothes too small for my current body, a lunchbox with food turned to dust, and a small notebook, my field trip journal from 1986. I opened it with trembling hands. The first few pages contained excited notes about the upcoming trip, drawings of trees and animals we might see. Then the entries changed. Saw myself in the bathroom mirror today, but I wasn't brushing my teeth when my reflection was. It smiled at me. Peter says his reflection is talking to him. Mum doesn't believe us. There's something wrong with Miss Winters. She keeps staring at her hands like she's never seen them before. The final entry, dated May 6, 1986. Tomorrow is the field trip. Peter doesn't want to go. He says his reflection told him something bad will happen. But Mum says we have to go. I'm scared. If you want to hear more whispers from the darkness, follow the channel. The next story may be closer than you imagine.